rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, it's a good thing that you weren't here earlier. You would have seen Jimmy Mack playing with his toys and talking about their crotch. But no, you're here now. You're here now. You missed all of that here on Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force and so much more. We got some action figure talk coming up in the program, as well as some production updates about Ahsoka Season 2. Where's that? We heard it went before cameras. When might we see it? I don't know. Plus, Mandalorian and Grogu. We got some highlights from Sigourney Weaver. She recently spoke about her role in that film. And more listener feedback. Man, oh man, everybody seems to have an opinion these days about the movie that never was, that could have been, that maybe should have been. What do you think? The Ben Solo, the Hunt for Ben Solo movie, Adam Driver and Steven Soderbergh. Everybody is, like I said, they have an opinion, whether it should have happened, whether it shouldn't have happened. But there's a lot of people in the camp saying, wait a minute, this was a golden opportunity for the franchise to get a major player like Steven Soderbergh, a brilliantly talented filmmaker, to lend his craft to the galaxy far, far away. And why in the world was this thing rejected at seemingly the last possible minute? So we'll have more fallout from that. Plus, if there's time, an outrageous, unthinkable story, Star Wars and pop culture, and so much more. All that you come to expect from us here at Rebel Force Radio. And by Rebel Force Radio, I mean me. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Glad to be back. I'm not going to share with the listening audience what I had to say about action figure crotches at the beginning of the show. But let's just say, some of those ball-jointed sculpts on these action figures that try to provide unlimited articulation, it's sometimes it damages the overall sculpt. For the sake of articulation, the actual aesthetic value of the action figure is being sacrificed, I think. And I also think the ultimate articulation on these action figures are what's driving up the costs to now $20 for a 3 3/4-inch action figure. It's just not right. And if they truly are targeting adult collectors now, finally, then isn't it largely assumed that adult collectors like to keep the action figures mint on card and they don't remove the bubble? They keep the action figure intact in the packaging? Then why the need for all of this articulation now? These are questions I have. And damn it, I want answers, because something that's always been traditionally a very positive feature of Star Wars action figures are the little peg holes on the bottom of the
hallmark
feet. It's a hallmark. Yeah. It's really the first action figure line to ever have that. I don't think people realize that because it's become so commonplace now. But that traditionally has always been a really amazing feature of the action figures, and it's something that Star Wars came up with back in the mid-'70s. And now, because of the heavily articulated action figures with their ball-jointed ankles, you have non-functioning little holes on the bottom of the feet of these action figures. Try slipping this onto a peg on an action figure stand or on a play set. Half the time you can't, because the peg hole is non-functioning. And you know me, Jason, if you're going to present me with a hole, I'm going to try to fill it.
That's right. What I've seen is that the peg holes are just too shallow, and you go to try to set the figure onto some sort of stand with the pegs, And then, like, not only are they shallow, a lot of times they're uneven. So your figure is like 1 foot's higher than the other foot. If you can even get the other foot on the peg. These are big problems.
Huge problems. These are the things that concern us and keep us awake at night. Hey, if you were tuning into RFR this week to hear our review of Season 3 of Star Wars Visions, I got some bad news for you. You're going to be hearing us just talk about the holes on the bottom of action figure feet for the next 2 hours. But I do have bad news for you. We're not going to be reviewing Visions Season 3 on this show because I don't think Jason's seen it. I know I haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it. No.
But I really am looking forward to watching it, and I don't want to be rushed through it. I don't want to be under any pressure to watch it. I want to enjoy it. And I have been rewatching Season 1 because there are a few of these shorts in a few of these anime shorts that are going to continue stories that started in Season 1. Most notably The Duel, The Village Bride, and The Ninth Jedi. I believe they all get continued in Season 3. So I'm looking forward to it, but hey, we just don't have time to watch it before this week's show, and quite honestly, non-canon Star Wars Visions to us here at Rebel Force Radio isn't exactly a stop the presses event. So
no, it's pretty low on the priority list.
Yeah, well, it is on the priority list though. So we plan on watching it, at least I do, and we will discuss next week.
All right. Well, let's discuss this. We started talking about action figures, but it's official. If you're shopping at the major stores, your Target and your Walmarts, you can see that's right. These price hikes are real. New suggested retail prices for the 3 3/4-inch vintage collection figures all the way up to $19.99. And the Black Series figures are all the way up for even higher than that. I think they're now at $34.99.
Hey, listen, let's not play this corporate pricing game and say it is what it is. $20 an action figure, $35. This whole 99 cents thing has been pissing me off my whole life.
It's marketing genius.
It's marketing. I'm not playing that game here on Rebel Force Radio. We're going to give you the solid truth because it's trickery. People see $7. That's all they see. They don't register the 99 cents. Oh, it's only $7. No, fool. It's $8.
Wait a minute. Are you challenging the 99-cent convention?
I think it's one of the worst and stupidest things. It's society's way of saying, gosh, we're dumb. Golly, are we stupid people? Geez, the universe must be laughing at us because we actually fall for this kind of psychological shell game that's going on here. Say it is what it is.
Has been around for a long, long time.
It's stupid. It's even worse with gas prices when they'll say it's $2.99 and 9/10 of a cent per gallon. And when you look at it, it's go, well, at least gas prices are still under $3 a gallon. No, fool. It's exactly $3 a gallon. Society, please, let's grow up. Let's stop being infants. We all play this game. So no, the action figures are $20.
All right, they're $20, and
up to $22, up to $22, depending on what kind of wretched sales tax they're applying to these purchases as well.
All right, first he's taking on 99 cents. Now he's after the sales tax.
Oh, please, who isn't?
All right,
who isn't? So let's call it like
all right, $20.
Yes.
For a 3 3/4-inch figure, $30 for a 6-inch Black Series figure. But here's what I find the most interesting about this is because a lot of times people are apt to say that, well, that's just inflation. But when the vintage collection came out in 2010, you were paying $8 a figure. And I remember thinking that was high. $8 a figure. Jason. That sounds like a paradise.
Let me just thank you. Let me thank you for maybe you're just humoring me or whatever, but you're actually rounding it up to the actual price. You said $8. You didn't say $7.99. I mean, let's
Well,
just stop
at
playing
Walmart,
these.
actually, Walmart is $7.97. Do you like that any better than 99?
No, because you're still crossing the 90-cent threshold.
So just round it up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like this at all. I heard McDonald's in some places is claiming there is a penny shortage. So if you're going to pay in cash, they're going to round up or down to the closest.
Well, hell yes, there's a penny
5
shortage.
or
I thought we
10
were
or something.
doing away with the penny. Wasn't that big news back? I don't know how long ago it was that the penny was being discontinued.
Yeah, who still pays in cash anyway?
Yeah.
So,
Well, if you're paying for cash for your action figures, back in 2010 it was $8. It's 22 in 2025. It's $20. But here's the thing: if action figures followed the same inflation rates as anything else, we should expect right here and now in the year 2025 to be paying $11.75 for an action figure. We are not. So action figures, in particular these Star Wars action figures, are outpacing inflation big time. A 150% increase. That is not inflation.
No, it's being done to cover the corporate executives' butts at Hasbro for mismanaging the toy brand for so long. That's why these increases are happening. We're paying a Hasbro tax due to their incompetence as corporate leaders.
Well, some people are blaming the tariffs, and the tariffs are a factor.
Of course.
But there is, obviously there's the price increase, general inflation, as I said. Also, manufacturing costs, supply chain, all of that. Tariffs, yes, but none of this, according to analysts, when you add it all up, none of this equates to 150% price increase from $8 to $20 in 15 years. So here's my theory about it, and I don't disagree with you that there's a tax because, well, there has been mismanagement of the. I can't speak for all Hasbro action figure lines. I'm not a big Marvel Legends collector, but in terms of Star Wars, which I've been religiously collecting since they came back out in 1995, you can hardly find the figures anywhere.
Yeah.
You read about new releases. If you're not ordering these things by mail, or you're not there at Target when they finally get this wave, when they'll probably only get one shipment per wave.
I know.
Then you're out of luck. But my theory is that for the longest time, and Jim, I remember you and we talked to a guy that I respect a lot, Scott Toy Guru Knightlick, a longtime toy maker, worked for a number of companies, including Jazzwares, worked on the Star Wars brand. And Scott's a really, really smart guy, and he knows the toy business really well. But I remember feeling a little bit frustrated because he was so reluctant to admit that adults were driving a big, big portion of toy sales. And he would always say that it was just a fraction. It was just a small, small number. It was all about kids, gift givers, parents. Those were the ones that were buying toys. And it was just back in late 2024, around Black Friday last year, that we started seeing articles in financial magazines like this here, for example, in the Financial Times. Rise of kidults means toys are no longer just child's play. There's one bright side in the toy industry shortfalls. Adults who are buying toys for themselves, dubbed kidults, these grown-up toy aficionados, are big spenders. Those aged 18 and older accounted for 18% of total U.S. toy sales in the year, this is talking about 24, in the year to September. $7.3 billion at stake. And those numbers are just continuing to go up and up. So I did a little Googling, and I found easily a dozen stories in major financial publications. Like I said, Financial Times. There's a number of them in, let's see, I just had the page up right here. Times Now, Los Angeles Times, Financial Times, The Telegraph, Financial Times. They're all saying rise of kidults, why toys are no longer just for children. Mattel accelerates efforts to move production to China as toy tariffs hit, and kidults are big business. The rise of kidults inside the cultural shift that's putting toys back on grown-up shelves. So I think it's about the toy companies realizing through all their research that indeed adults are buying 20% of the toys and they can afford them. We have jobs. We're upwardly mobile people. And I think it comes down to they're going to buy it no matter what we price it at because they're Star Wars fans. They're Marvel fans. They're going to buy them. So I think it's gouging because they've realized who their audience is. It's no longer grandma going to Target to buy her grandson a gift. It's guys like you and me going down the aisle and being like, oh, wow, they've got the new Chimere figure for a Black Series. And you pick that up.
Or Kaz from Resistance. There he is. Let's look at Kaz's crotch for a second. And appreciate the sculpting of this crotch. You know, we're not talking ball jointed. We're talking
Chimere's crotch.
5 points of articulation on this particular action figure.
There's a simple beauty in 5 points of articulation, and they did bring it back there after the super articulation craze. It kind of crashed out, and if you remember, this was, I think, back when Daryl DePriest was still running the brand there. They did 5 points of articulation in the main line. They brought it back, and the idea was they were going to really up the quality of the sculpting. And it wasn't too long after that they brought the vintage collection back, and there's been no looking back since, really.
That vintage collection is going to eventually destroy the hobby for one and all, because it's not going to be feasible for us to continue collecting at a price range of $20 to $30 per action figure.
No.
You know, their godforsaken deluxe vintage collection figures are now retailing for $33. Those things are going to be swinging on the pegs forever. You want to talk about inflation? Well, let's talk about shrinkflation in the fact that you don't get the accessories you used to get with these action figures. If you do get a few bonus accessories, it suddenly becomes a deluxe action figure, and they're charging you upwards of $11 to $12 more per figure, just because you get a couple of little plastic blasters included with it, or a shield, or some kind of nonsense. Back in the day, they used to pack in all of that stuff with the action figures. And this deluxe business was a rarity when it happened, but usually you understood the value you were getting. Oh, that C-3PO comes with a full escape pod? Okay, I can see paying a couple more bucks for this deluxe figure. The deluxe figures they're pimping now are a joke, and they all go to the clearance racks.
Yeah, they really do.
All
that.
of them
Cobb
do.
Vanth did. There was another. There was a
IG-11. IG-11 with
IG-11.
Grogu. Yep, that one. I'm seeing that now for like $13.
Yeah.
The plan is now for savvy collectors to be patient and wait and look at eBay. Look at the secondary market. Look at places like Ollie's or Big Lots or Five Below or wherever you find discounted items. Ross, Dress for Less, has been stocking Star Wars stuff because it's just simply not moving at the big box stores anymore, because fans, collectors, kids, whoever, grandmas, whoever, they're all being priced out. Nobody understands the value of this thing. So they couldn't find a happy medium after denying that the collectors were out there in the first place. The adult collectors were out there in the first place saying, well, we just make this stuff for kids. The kids dominate the market. Now they've completely swung the pendulum all the way in the other direction. And they're saying, well, it's just the collectors that are out there buying this stuff. Who cares about the kids? Who cares about the casuals? Let's just go after the hardcores because we know we have their wallets attached to us like an umbilical cord.
Right. Once they're not in the business of making things for kids anymore, then they don't have that social pressure, that societal pressure to keep things affordable because they're for guys like you and me. But when you said earlier about articulation and do people keep their figures on boxed up or on cards and stuff, figure photography is a big deal. I think that is driving a lot of the need or the seeming need for highly articulated figures. I mean, if you look, I've got figures posed on my shelf back here. I think posing and staging them is probably bigger than it was back in, say, the 90s and in the early 2000s when it was about, we were all obsessed with keeping them in a package because we, of course, grew up having had the original figures, played really hard with them. They were more rare, and of course, they're worth tons and tons of money now. So everybody tried to sort of get a redo on that. And when new toys were coming out, I'm going to keep everything in the package. And of course, they produced so many of them. I'm thinking about the Power of the Force line in 1995. I'm thinking of the Phantom Menace line in 1999. So no one's going to become rich or pay for their children's college with their postmodern Star Wars action figure collection. That's for sure.
So we have some research here presented to us from RFR VIP Turtle Wars, who broke down all the price increases over the years. And as you mentioned earlier, Jason, the vintage collection started at $8 per figure back in 2010. There was a price increase to $9 in 2011, $10 in 2012. From 2013 to 2018, there were no new figures in the vintage collection. When the vintage collection resumed in 2018, the price then was $13 per figure. Then 2022 and 2023 saw various increases of price from $14 per figure to $17 per figure, depending on the figure. And now, here we are at the end of 2025. We're talking $20 a figure, and the so-called deluxe vintage collection figures on the larger card backs are going for $33 per figure. There's no way to sustain this hobby. They're killing the hobby. The vintage collection is going to be looked back years from now as a giant nail in the coffin for Star Wars action figure collecting.
It's hardly a failure. It's been going strong for 15 years. That's longer than the original line of Star Wars figures. I think this price increase might actually, that's the nail in the coffin, I think, for a lot of people.
So we'll probably be looking at some sublines now emerging, and hopefully they'll all stay within the 3 3/4 inch range. They have these Epic Hero action figures, which size out of the classic vintage collection by a 1/4 inch. They're 4 inches.
Right. Yeah.
And I know some collectors have been sort of integrating some of those figures into their traditional Star Wars action figure collections, but I refuse to do so. But it is a cheaper price point, obviously geared more toward the kid, the kid collectors among us. But it's a fail. And
they're still putting vehicles out for those figures. That's the other thing, is that when you go back and you listen to these geniuses at Kenner back in the 70s and early 80s talking about what made that action figure line so popular, it was the vehicles. The figures were almost accessories for the vehicles. That's really where the margins were and where they saw, I think, some of their biggest profits. The figures were almost secondary because it was about world building. Now, I don't think collectors are concerned about world building, though you have seen a bit of a pivot with environments. We've seen Hasbro releasing more, whether it be the Tantive 4, hallway, the Jabba's Palace was a big one. That was a big premium item. But what's the other one? Oh, there was the Mos Eisley Street that came out. There was Moff Gideon's ship. So they have been doing this because I think they know that collectors want to display these things on shelves while they're doing their podcast.
Yeah, I was a little harsh to the old Mos Eisley HasLab Cantina a few weeks ago, and some people let me hear about it. They'd send me pictures of unopened Mos Eisley cantinas, saying, "Jimmy Mack, what you're saying on the show, you said collecting is dead. I'm thinking about not opening this and putting it on eBay and all this stuff." I'm like, "Oh no, don't do that." I mean, if you're a collector like I am, that you can't turn your back on these things once you've acquired them. Sure, did I have buyer's remorse? Yeah, I did. Pretty much the second after I gave them my money for the Mos Eisley Cantina, because I feel like that's some real gouging going on there. I think this thing's priced about $200 more than it should be. At the price they sold it at, it should have had lights included. I shouldn't have to be assembling the hookah pipes myself, which is a nightmare with those little hookah pipe tubes. Practically sent me into a straitjacket with that thing, and then I just gave up, Yeah. I'm like, sorry, hookah smoker at the bar. What's his name? He stands there, he's smoking. Danik Jericho. I said, "Sorry, Danik. You're out of luck, man. No smokes for you tonight." But the thing is with this Mos Eisley Cantina, though, is it's been a thrill to have it in the collection. I will say that. And it absolutely has sort of revitalized my collecting in the way I have my displays, like across the board almost. There have been so many changes that have happened to my collecting displays with the addition of this Mos Eisley Cantina. It's really up the game of the entire layout of my collection and everything that's on display. And so I've liked it a lot.
Are you grouping your figures now like by scenes? Is that what you're doing, or you still got them kind of all lined up?
There's a lot more
like
of that.
soldiers?
There's more of that happening than has ever happened before.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Me and my 3,000 plus action figures. It's quite the scene we got going on down here. You want to talk about grouping action figures in the scenes? Well, you should see the scene I got going on down here with me and all of these action figures. It's kind of like a crazy fantasy world we have going on down here. And that's all I'm allowed to say. I had to sign an NDA for my own collection. I had to,
and before we change the topic, I do, something that just occurred to me. I think one of the companies that we have to thank for this is Lego, because Lego was into the adult premium market unashamedly, not trying to say that adult collectors weren't a big part of their marketing. They were owning it. And, they're the ones that put out a Millennium Falcon model for $850. They're not shying away from it or shrinking away from it. They're saying it loud, saying it proud.
Look at that Death Star thing.
Yeah, right.
That they just $1,000.
Yeah,
for
and there's waiting lists.
Lego playset. I can't justify that. I'll justify the HasLab Mos Eisley Cantina far before I'll justify $1,000 Lego set.
Although, based on what you were saying, it must have felt like that cantina was like a Lego set. There were that many pieces.
Yeah, well, you own one.
I do. It's still in the box.
I challenge you to sit down with it and assemble the whole thing without madness ensuing. But it's a lot of fun. I just wanted to say, I feel like we are getting gouged as collectors. And I am firmly becoming committed to the secondary market and the secondary market only. And not only that, a lot of stuff has piled up around me over the years. So I'm stepping away from modern action figure collecting to apply my attention to the decades of stuff that's accumulated.
What you already have, right?
What I already have, because I've been doing it more and more. And as you can see, I got the Kaz action figure here. He's with me in the studio all these years later. Woohoo! Yeah! One of his most famous lines of dialogue right there from Star Wars Resistance.
The only Star Wars also that TV episode, anything that I never watched.
There was that episode where he went, whoa! Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of exciting stuff going on in that show. But it was a show that was very hard to take seriously.
Yeah,
very hard. It was just so dumbed down, yet that it was almost insulting. Not like the Jedi show that they have for kids, the Young Jedi Knight show. I mean, that's geared toward little kids.
Yeah.
And you know that. You get that. Even though I still am occasionally impressed in the limited time I've actually watched those episodes. It's some of the bold steps they take into Star Wars canon. I am impressed with that. Resistance was just a hot mess from day one because I think the entire story of Resistance got thrown out of whack with the firing of Kevin Trevorrow from episode 9 and the revamping of the story, the reintroduction of J.J. Abrams back into the sequel trilogy and all that. Meanwhile, these guys, they probably had to scrap a lot of Star Wars Resistance
you don't think
episodes
anybody went up to JJ and said, hey, I like all these plans you got, but we've got this animated series called Resistance.
You know,
and
we had Kaz all set to go to Mortis, and now you're completely unraveling everything here. It's like, what are you talking about? A cartoon show? What are you talking about? Cartoons? I'm J.J. Abrams. I have a movie to make. Excuse me.
Hey, JJ's producing that new Batman animated series for Amazon Prime. Or no, was it on Amazon? Yeah, it was on Amazon Prime. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, the first season's available. It feels very much like Batman the animated series from the 90s.
Oh, yes, of course. What's the name of that show? It was excellent. I watched that as well.
The Batman, I don't know. The Dark
we were
Knight,
talking about
so, I don't know.
You, me, FJ, Kyle, we were all talking. That came out a couple of years ago.
There's another season coming out very soon. So, and that's JJ's very involved in that. JJ, I think, and his son are involved in that.
That is an excellent, excellent show. And it told the best Catwoman story I think I'd ever heard.
That was very good.
So Batman, that's coming back. Action figures, they're not affordable anymore. Secondary markets, antique shops, rummage sales, flea markets, toy shows, conventions.
Discount stores.
Discount stores everywhere, yeah. Second hand stores, whatever. Salvation Army, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm getting my Star Wars stuff. I'm not paying no full price. This MSRP is insulting. It's ridiculous. And I think it's extremely unhealthy for the hobby of Star Wars action figure collecting, a hobby I've been heavily associated with and heavily involved in for, I don't want to say how long. It's been that long.
A long time.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. We could afford action figures, actually. But, I mean, isn't it true? We're just the regular guys getting priced out of everything. Can't go to ball games no more.
Can't go to concerts. Yeah.
Can't, if you go to a concert, don't expect to eat or drink anything at that thing while you're there, we're just getting priced out of everything. The average price of a car in America is now like $50,000. It's just scratching for survival is all we're doing. And a lot of people are feeling that kind of pain on their bank accounts these days, and choices have to be made. And when it comes to things like being an adult, buying action figures,
supporting Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. How about that? We keep the prices
now
way
that's
low.
That's something that you can't live without. And I'll tell you why. Because you truly get your value for your money, bang for your buck at RFR on Patreon. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Only $2 gets you in the door and gets you immediate access to ad-free early bird releases of Rebel Force Radio programming and several episodes of RFR Q&A each and every month. RFR Q&A featuring myself and RFR VIPs discussing all elements of the wars. And yeah, Matt Rashid, he's back. He's back for RFR Q&A number 270, Star Wars Screenplay Roulette. Or roulette. not roulette. That's how, like,
Olay.
people say it, I guess, roulette. I'm watching the, Toronto's in the World Series, so I kind of got my Canadian French going. Good day, But Star Wars Screenplay Roulette is really a follow-up to that episode from earlier this year, RFR Q&A, Star Wars Annotated Screenplays, which we released as a emergency episode of Rebel Force Radio a couple of weeks ago. Well, we have the follow-up to that. So many people, when they heard that, they're like, wow, we want more. I guess me and Matt left that first one really open-ended, saying we'll come back to it, Well, we did this week on Patreon. You can listen to Star Wars Screenplay Roulette, and that's when we have our editions of the Star Wars Annotated Screenplay with us, and we just flip through the book, just randomly. We just flip through it, and boom, we land on a page, and we have the scene, and Matt will say, page 75, and so I'll go there. Interior, Death Star, garbage room, and then we reenact the scene. And we try our hardest to do character voices and all that good stuff. Matt's a good actor. He actually is an actor professionally. And then there's me, who pretends a lot of times. But I have Star Wars going through my head all the time, so there's a sense of legitimacy to my performance as well. I don't want to sell myself short, but that's RFR Q&A number 270, available to all supporters of Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. Also this week, the Babu Freaks returned, and we react to the news about the hunt for Ben Solo. And we discuss all of that. We discuss the latest Hasbro HasLab offerings. So a show very similar to this one, actually, collecting talk and discussion about the hunt for Ben Solo, which we'll be doing in news headlines here in just a few minutes. But we also talk about Star Wars comics from Marvel and just have a lot of laughs. I love those guys, and when we get together, it's always a good time. That's the Babu Freaks, now available on Rebel Force Radio on Patreon, RFR Q&A, new episodes coming out each and every week. And this week has Matt Rashid and Star Wars Screenplay Roulette. So join now. And in addition to those great podcasts, you can also get full show video and exclusive offers that RFR listeners can't get anywhere else, only on Patreon. Plus access to a really great community of Star Wars fans. The best community of Star Wars fans you'll find anywhere in the universe can be found on Patreon. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio is the place. You want to go there, support Rebel Force Radio, and help us maintain the health of this show for years to come. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Go there, do it, support RFR.
Another trick-or-treater to add to my collection.
Rebel Force Radio.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
Well, as I mentioned, everybody is still talking about Ben Solo. We even got some Steven Soderbergh came out and actually commented about it. So this thing is more than legitimate, but there are some saying that they knew about this. Jim, there's some saying, wait, this I knew about this 6 months ago. This guy,
well, we knew about
Perez,
it, right? I mean, we were sworn to secrecy here on RFR, but I mean, obviously,
I got a copy of the script right here. I mean,
put that away. People are going to screenshot that thing and blow this whole thing out of the water. You're not supposed to have that script, Jason. Just because Adam Driver gave it to us personally, because he's like, you guys really understand. And so he sent it to us, He used Yoda's fax machine on Dagobah, the same fax machine Yoda uses to send us the Yoda questionnaire. He faxed us the entire script.
Yeah.
And it's all right.
By the way, all the people covering this story, I'm so sick of seeing pictures of Kylo Ren in a story about Ben Solo. I feel like we're one of the only ones, Jim, only one of the outlets that are being true to this. See, if you're going to talk about a Ben Solo story, you got to show Ben Solo. And he only appears very briefly. And I'll tell you, I went frame by frame of that film trying to get screen grabs, and there's precious little footage of Adam Driver as Ben Solo, particularly in good lighting. Remember, this was, just still during that era when everything in Star Wars was just shrouded in darkness and you could hardly see what's going on. That whole sequence at the end of that movie, I forgot how frustratingly dark it is. And don't tell me about my TV. I'm watching on a $1,500 iPad here. That's one of the best screens you can get. Believe me, I know.
Wait, so you left your old iPad on the plane going out to RFR Rancho Obi-Wan, and you replaced it with a $1,500.
Well, I replaced it with a. Whoa. I always buy the high end. Whenever I'm buying something new from Apple, I make sure that it's going to last me a good while.
Was the one you left on the plane also?
At the time, no, because the prices have gone way up on these things. So this is the iPad Pro. The new iPad Pro. They're pricey.
Pro. And they're pricey, Jason says.
Yeah.
And so, like, what value do you get? I mean, I'm sorry, folks. I'm tech dumb. What kind of advantages do you have? Because you paid like $1,000 more than $1,000, like probably $1,200 more than I paid for my iPad. My iPad was like $300-400, right?
Yeah, it's just the capacity. It can do more. I can edit video on it.
Okay, that's a good
for one. And the screen. Once you've watched a movie with this screen, it's like, oh god, I don't want to go see anything. I don't want to look at it on anything else. I think the screen's just as good, if not better, than my television in my main TV watching room. Like, it's just incredible. The colors are amazing.
What'd you spend on that TV in your main TV? What's that worth?
I'm not going to talk about what I spent on my TV.
You just told us about the eye. What difference does it make?
Because every time you and I talk about these TV shows and these movies being so dark, we get somebody telling us that we're not using the gear appropriately or we don't have the right gear. And my point is, I shouldn't have to fine tune my TV. What is this, the 60s? I got to have somebody stand with rabbit ears in the corner of the room holding onto a coat hanger? No. Yeah. I will not buy the fact that these filmmakers are not I think they're either cutting corners or they're very misguided when they're making these films so dark. And it's not just Star Wars. I see it all over the place. You can find articles. You can see movie critics talking about how everything's just gray and dreary and hidden in shadow anymore. I think it's a phase. We'll get out of it. But anyway, it's hard to find a good shot of Ben Solo was the whole point.
Well, you could have also referred to The Last Jedi in those flashbacks, those Rashomon flashbacks, and get a shot of, Ben in bed reaching for his saber,
Think about
or
that. Right.
just crossing blades with Luke while still in bed. He's
and
wearing
Luke
his
looks
pajamas.
so angry and mean and snarly and
snarly.
Not my Luke Skywalker. Not Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker either, for that matter.
You mean Jake?
Yeah, Jake Skywalker.
So he's very snarly. Very snarly. I sound like Rain Man now. It's very snarly.
Definitely snarly.
Snarly. Very snarly. Gotta go to Kmart.
But this guy, Rodrigo Perez, writing for the playlist.net, he has some interesting things to say. One, that he knew about this 6 months ago, but was sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, but we were too. We were totally sworn to secrecy here at RFR. I just want to say, on the record, I just want to say that.
But what he and he's not laying any terribly new groundwork here, but he's just confirming and expounding on the facts that were revealed by Adam Driver in that AP interview. And so he's confirming that, yes, it had a completed script, the full creative stamp of approval from Kathleen Kennedy. It was greenlit before being canceled by Disney executives Bob Iger and Alan Bergman. Jim, this is my biggest question about this whole thing. I did not know that you could get all the way to a completed script.
Yeah.
This alleges that they were starting to hire crew. They were starting to hire crew for this thing when Iger and Bergman gave the big thumbs down. They did not have this thing approved by Disney until they sent the script.
And then they received rejection.
And Kathleen Kennedy told Steven Soderbergh, who stated this on his Blue Sky account, that this was the very first time that a project did not move forward when Lucasfilm had presented a script to Disney. The first time. But I just can't believe that with a guy like Soderbergh, Adam Driver, and then the whole creative crew at Disney being behind this thing, that they wouldn't have vetted the idea past Iger and Bergman before they got a script and were starting to hire a crew.
It seems shifty, shady, and a very untrusting relationship that's happening between Lucasfilm and the head honchos at Disney. Now, listen, I'll give Kathy Kennedy a lot of credit for, managing upward,
Oh, yeah.
That's an important thing for any manager to be able to do, not be just, sit up on top of the mountain and give orders to people who work beneath you. You have to also manage upward to be able to make sure that whoever is in charge of you is happy with the work you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so the way Kathy saw it, the best way to do it was like present a fully fleshed out idea to these guys. And they will be so impressed, once it gets past us. First, we have to be impressed.
Okay.
And if we're impressed by the script, then obviously Bob Iger and Alan Bergman and anybody else up in the top suite at Disney corporate will love it. So they're kind of fueled by a little bit of hubris, I think, in that approach. Also, I think they don't realize is that the guys sitting in the top executive suite at Disney are once bitten, twice shy with Kathy Kennedy's Lucasfilm these days. They have given her the green light for massive flops like the Solo film, diminishing returns with each film of the sequel trilogy, with rising production costs along the way. And then, of course, there's the streaming failures of shows like The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. All right, whether you liked them or not, there weren't eyeballs on those shows.
Right.
Yet they were extremely expensive to produce. You're not going to tell me Jude Law did it for scale, okay? We all know he didn't. So I think Bob and Bergman and the other Disney top people in the studio, they really are trying to keep Lucasfilm on a tight leash these days. And if they see a discrepancy in the script where Ben Solo is suddenly alive again and they feel like the explanation is not there, it made crystal clear in the narrative, or it doesn't add up, then they're going to think really hard about it, because there was so many things in the sequel trilogy that didn't add up, that didn't make any sense. And now in retrospect, we can see all of that very clearly. And the Disney executives are no different than us. And they hear what the fans are saying. They understand the frustrations of the fan base when suddenly, somehow, Palpatine returned. Okay? I mean, there needed to be more substance in that sequel trilogy, and it simply ain't there in so many different corners of that narrative. And I think Disney realizes this. And they're like, here's another half-assed narrative effort coming from Lucasfilm, and they want $400 million, or $250 million is the number I heard associated to this Hunt for Ben Solo project. You know, they were trying to be reasonable about it in financial terms of Hollywood in 2025. $250 million is a bargain for a Star Wars film.
Here, to add insult to injury, Perez here alleges that Soderbergh and Driver, despite working on this thing for a couple of years, were not compensated at all. They
Right,
did
I
have
heard
to.
that, yeah.
They did have to compensate Scott Burns. He is the screenwriter behind Contagion and also one of the uncredited writers on Rogue One before Tony Gilroy came on board that picture. But that they did pay him 7 figures for writing that script that just went into the bin in Bob Iger's office. Another little bit of juice here is that some close to the production, they believe that Iger giving the thumbs down on this project to be a political move because he was really trying to put Bergman over, because Bergman at the time was really considered to be Bob Iger's heir apparent. And he was trying to give all kinds of, like, hey, the buck stops with Bergman. He's the real creative decider here in this organization. So that's what Summer's saying. One of the things that I've been hearing, Jim, and I got to say, I'm not going to be shy about giving you props, because even though I know you have had your fair share of differences with Kathleen Kennedy, you've been very vocal. I've been very vocal. I have looked at her as being the central figure for all the things that have gone wrong with Star Wars. You, however, have set your eyes and pointed your finger at Bob Iger. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, okay, yeah, he's had something to do with it, but he's running this entire thing, this whole enterprise, the parks, all the film divisions, everything. I can't lay it all at his feet. But I'm hearing some things online that lead me to believe that Bob just might be the Phantom Menace behind a lot of this. And one of the great examples is Star Wars Celebration Europe in 2023, in April. Kathleen Kennedy comes out. She brings Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy on stage, James Mangold, and Dave Filoni, and says, here's the future of Star Wars. These are the next movies that we're getting. The Filoni Heir to the Empire film, that's what people were calling it. The Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy Rey film, and the James Mangold Tales of the Jedi or History of the Jedi, Jedi BC, whatever. 9 months later, Disney says the next movie coming to theaters is Mandalorian and Grogu. And the rumors are that that was a Bob Iger decision. He scrapped season 4 of Mando and said, we're making a movie, and this is going to be the next one. This was a huge usurpation of Kathleen Kennedy's authority within that studio. And I think Bob was flexing, and I think this move to kill this Ben Solo movie was also a flex.
I believe that Kathy, when she introduced Sharmeen and Filoni and especially Mangold, by introducing him to the audience at Star Wars Celebration, I mean, there was very little integrity or substance behind the announcement that he was going to be making a Dawn of the Jedi film. The Dawn of the Jedi film has been in development at Lucasfilm for the better part of the last decade. And it was Benioff and Weiss, who were the Game of Thrones guys, who in 2018 signed on to Star Wars to essentially produce a series of films based on this Dawn of the Jedi concept. It went belly up. There were other names associated with working on that particular project. There were some very well-known, established screenwriters working on Dawn of the Jedi type projects. And then it just sort of got put on the shelf, and the development stalled on that. And all of a sudden, then you have James Mangold, who's riding a wave of success, and he shows up at Star Wars Celebration London in 2023 to promote the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny film. He and Kathy start talking The Wars, And Kathy tells him about this Dawn of the Jedi dealio that they've been working on forever. And Mangold expresses a little bit of interest in something like that. Kathy says, would you be interested in doing something like that? He says, well, I got this Bob Dylan movie. I got the Swamp Thing. I got a couple of other projects I'm working on. But yeah, sure, sign me up for Star Wars. That sounds pretty damn cool. So hours later, she gets up on stage and announces James Mangold is now in the fold, and there is a Dawn of the Jedi film currently in development. Well, that Dawn of the Jedi film had been in development for a long time, and it stalled out. And now Kathy is looking at James Mangold to be the savior of that project. So that gets announced, and Dave Filoni's there. And we know, Dave's a company man. He's on board for anything. So she'll promise a movie to Dave, which is something he's wanted his whole career, a live-action film to follow in the footsteps of his mentor, George Lucas, and actually create his own Star Wars film for once. So she gives him essentially what is being presented to us is the conclusion of the Mandalorian era or the Mandalorian story with a full-on Avengers-type Mandalorian movie that brings in all these different elements from the shows like The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, etc.
Yeah.
Right? So all that
and
gets
that was
announced.
also rumored to be where Thrawn was going to have his big epic battle, and it was not going to be in this Mando Grogu film.
Now, from what I understand, Bob Iger was blindsided by those announcements. And
I
that
heard
didn't
that too.
sit well.
I heard
that
that
didn't
too, yeah.
sit well with the, in the ivory towers at Disney. So that was a motivation for Iger than to say, oh, you think that's where this series is heading? No, that's going to take too long to develop and you guys are going to blow it. So I'm going to take the thing I know that's a sure thing with Jon Favreau attached to it. John's a sure thing.
Yeah.
Let's get this Mandalorian movie happening. Forget season 4. Let's make a Mandalorian movie because as Tony Gilroy has revealed in interviews that Disney stopped prioritizing original streaming series for Star Wars years ago. By the time they had gotten season 2 of Andor into production, Disney had moved on from prioritizing Star Wars and Marvel streaming series because they were in the red. They weren't making any money off of that. The subscriber base didn't respond the way they wanted it to. So now you have a season 4 fully fleshed out for The Mandalorian, and Disney's not prioritizing those streaming series anymore. But they're desperate to get Star Wars back in the theaters, and Lucasfilm is dragging their feet and have been for years. So Iger says, Mandalorian movie, get it happening now. Has a meeting with Favreau. Favreau, can you get it done? Yeah, I could get it done. Boom. Announce. January 2024.
Like right after the first of the year. Meanwhile, everybody spends the summer and fall and winter talking about these 3 movies, speculating about these 3 movies. You had Charmin Chenoy. Jim, this thing was January 9th, 2024. It was December 31st, 2023, when Charmin was on that New Year's Eve special on CNN talking about her movie. So what I'm saying is like a matter of not even 2 weeks after Charmin's on CNN talking about that she's got the movie, the next Star Wars movie, here comes Disney with the Mando Grogu movie. I think that a lot of you, I think you're right. I think this is a lot of Bob Iger putting Kathleen Kennedy in her place.
Maybe.
You think you run the show, but I think you're also right when you say that Bob looked at these announcements of these 3 films and thought to himself, you will never get these done.
Right.
You'll never get these done, and went with the sure thing, like you said. And then around that same time, because that would have been around this same time in 2023, the decision was made by Bergman and Iger to give the kibosh to the Kylo Ren movie, the Ben Solo movie. So all this stuff was happening around the same time.
Yeah, total mayhem.
Yeah,
over there at Disney, and we're starting to understand the politics of it a little bit too. With Bergman, Bob is trying to transfer a significant amount of power from himself to Bergman. Iger's such a lame duck president of the Walt Disney Corporation right now. He's a total lame duck. And so he's trying to grease the skid so his buddy Bergman ends up in Iger's office. And he's granted him a lot of power. And I guess that has backfired to a degree, because there are other high-profile projects that Bergman has dragged his feet on. I don't know exactly what they are, but he's under criticism from insiders at the Walt Disney Corporation for dragging his feet on things, for not shepherding can't miss projects, essentially, and just all in all kind of being an albatross.
He's worked himself off the list of top candidates for the big seat.
Yes. And where does Kathy Kennedy fall in all of those politics? Is she not a Bergman supporter? That could be something that has come into play here. What is Kathy going to do? She says she's just going to produce films once she finally steps down from her leadership role at Lucasfilm. She says she's just going to continue to work on films, and that's great. That's wonderful. But something tells me that there was more ambition in her game plan months or years ago, because I think maybe there was a moment in Kathy Kennedy's career where she was considering taking over for Bob Iger. And get, well,
I think that was part of the attraction of staying with Lucasfilm after the Disney acquisition. Because remember, she was hired by George to run Lucasfilm, still owned and operated by George Lucas.
Right. And then when all of a sudden the guys at Disney started to really put their fingerprints all over Lucasfilm, and they did it very quickly too, probably quicker than anyone could have imagined. Lucasfilm firmly became absorbed by Disney in all facets of its operation very quickly. And the thing that I think gave Lucasfilm a little bit of wiggle room after that all went down was following the success of The Force Awakens. I think then Disney sort of said, well, Lucasfilm has it going on, so we'll just let them handle things.
They were 2 for 2 with Force Awakens and Rogue One.
And so they had this autonomy. But I think the rug has been pulled out from underneath all that autonomy. I don't think that they are self-sufficient at all anymore. I think Disney firmly has Lucasfilm on a short leash. And it's just a matter of time when Iger steps down and Kathy Kennedy steps down, both from their leadership roles at Disney and Lucasfilm, respectively. And that's going to turn into a really interesting situation, because it's going to be happening at the same time next year, essentially. Yeah. And with all of this political maneuvering going on behind the scenes, who knows what direction the Star Wars franchise will be pointed in, say, 12 to 18 months from now.
What do you make of this code name for the production of the Ben Solo film, Quiet Leaves? So it had a in the tradition of code names that they've had for various films, most famously Blue Harvest for Return of the Jedi. Quiet Leaves.
Does it mean like quiet leaves the room, or the leaves from the trees are quiet? What does that even mean?
I don't know. It's up for interpretation. It means whatever you want it to mean, but I don't know if there's much that you can extrapolate from that any more than you could extrapolate from Blue Harvest, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I get nothing from Quiet Leaves. And I just wish, it came with a logo or something. Like maybe it's a maple leaf, and then I'll know what kind of leaves we're talking about here. I don't know if we're talking about the action of leaving a place, or if we're talking about the leaves in a tree. Yeah. So let's just move on, because that'll just drive me insane if I keep thinking about it.
If you're one of those people that are saying, oh, this is really interesting timing to be talking about this, Adam and Soderbergh might be trying to float this idea out there. Doesn't sound like it. Soderbergh pretty much has closed the door on this. This is dead as far as he's concerned. The NDAs have worn off. That's why these guys are able to talk about it. The statute of limitations is up. The non-disclosure window is passed, and they can talk about it, but they're not talking about it in a way that leads me to believe that they're just waiting for this thing to get reborn.
Yeah, you know, a guy like Steven Soderbergh with his career, he's had a 30-plus year career as a filmmaker, and I just think maybe he's a little used to the process, you know. I create something, they take it or they leave it, and if they leave it, then I move on.
He probably gets paid normally for that work. He and his wife.
They didn't get paid anything for this, though. Well, Soderbergh didn't. Maybe his wife got a few bucks.
No, it was the screenwriter. Scott Burns. He got paid, but Rebecca Blunt. That's the pseudonym for Jules Asner, which is Soderbergh's wife. She also wrote Logan Lucky. She wasn't paid either.
So yeah, you know. And then they pay this other guy 7 figures. Burns, you know. Was that petty cash at Lucasfilm?
Well,
where did that money come from?
He had a history, you know. He was one of the... they owed him a favor because he came in and tried to save Rogue One before Tony showed up.
Yeah. That's something we never knew, that there was another guy in there trying to patch up that mess prior to Gilroy arriving on the scene. We had... Burns, but it's an odd situation. Fans are reacting, you know. They're all up in arms about this. Some fans think this could have been the greatest thing in the world. I'm starting to understand the fan base's relationship to Kylo Ren in a much more profound way than I ever could before, because as I said, his death, the death of Kylo Ren, didn't really resonate with me at all. I was just happy that the sequel trilogy had finally concluded. I really was, man. I was touched by the film itself, you know. I mean, all of the character deaths that happened throughout that film. Leia, and then Ben Solo, and then you have Han Solo returning as this Force apparition to Ben, all this stuff. I thought that was all really touching stuff. I'm such a chump for The Rise of Skywalker. And when people say, boy, that was the worst film ever made and stuff, it's like I don't have the energy to push back against that, because I get where people are coming from with all that. But those people, I think, were much more invested in the sequel trilogy than I ever was. I never had these feelings for Ben or Rey or Poe or Rose or Finn. None of them did I ever have a connection with any of those characters that could come close to even suggesting rivalry with the connection I feel toward original trilogy and prequel trilogy characters. Agreed. I never felt that connection. But there is a generation of fans that actually do, you know. I wonder how many Kylo Rens are going to be showing up at my house for trick or treat. You know, years ago, there was a significant number of Kylo Rens.
Oh, yes.
When the sequels were happening. But
we already had trick or treat in my neighborhood. And I buy the large size candy bars for anybody that shows up in a Star Wars costume. Yeah. And there wasn't a single Star Wars. We had nearly 300 trick or treaters come to our door. And not a single Star Wars costume. Not a one.
I give them $20. Here you go, kid. Here's a 20. You know, don't spend it all in one place.
Yeah.
I give them $20 and a little box of candy cigarettes. I'm that guy. Lots of people complain in the neighborhood too, but I'm just showing my appreciation. But fans were losing their minds. The fans who really think this is a great idea. Some fans paid for a plane to fly over the Disney studios in Burbank with a banner that said, "Save the hunt for Ben Solo." And I mean, this kind of thing happens all the time in LA, with people flying banners around, whether it be for a sporting event or they fly banners in private planes over the backyard of the Big Brother house. You know, Connor is a liar. It says, things like that. And those banners have cost me a fortune over the years, but I keep doing it. And here we have the plane actually flying over the Disney headquarters. They had a hashtag, the hunt for Ben Solo. You know what? It is so ineffective to hashtag your message when you're flying it on a banner behind an airplane. Because it just all blends into one thing. And from the ground, you're like, save the Hunt for
Red October? I love that movie.
The Forbnesolo. What does that say?
It's like Ralphie decoding the Little Orphan Annie message. Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. It's all running together.
Come on, Collider, get your act together. You got to pay for this banner to fly over the Disney headquarters.
Well, Collider the Collider just happened to be there. They didn't pay.
Sure,
for
they
it.
did.
Wink, wink.
Sure, they did.
Nod.
Sure
they just happened to. They just happened to be in the area.
But then other yahoos are putting up missing posters, Have you seen the hunt for Ben Solo? And they plaster it all outside the Disney headquarters in Burbank.
I like that.
That's a good one. I like that one too. Missing. We should get milk cartons and stuff with Ben Solo's face on it.
Right.
So, yeah, fans are reacting. Soderbergh responded that he did not enjoy, his quote is, "For the record, I did not enjoy lying about the existence of the hunt for Ben Solo, but it really did need to remain a secret until now." He says, in the aftermath of the hunt for Ben Solo situation, I asked Kathy Kennedy if LFL had ever turned in a finished movie script for greenlight to Disney and had it rejected. She said no, this was a first. How many scripts do you think Kathy has presented to Disney blindly, fully fleshed out scripts that they paid 7 figures for? Is this a regular thing? Is this how all Star Wars movies get presented to Disney? Is this how they presented the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy film to them? Is this how they presented the Kenobi trilogy of films they wanted to make?
I cannot.
Is this how
imagine. I cannot imagine.
No. Is this
so
how they?
Strange.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Strange.
Is this how they presented the Rian Johnson trilogy to Disney? I don't think Disney ever gave that Johnson trilogy a green light. I don't think they ever did. And I think Kathy Kennedy would have thrown that thing into production, but Iger and Bergman said, no, you're not going to make another flippin' Rian Johnson Star Wars film. What's the matter with you? This really pulls back the curtain on what I think is there's a lot of friction in the relationship between Lucasfilm and Disney. And you have to wonder, once Kathy Kennedy steps down, do you think that Disney wants to keep playing games with Lucasfilm? Or do you think maybe they might just want to absorb Lucasfilm and move everything to Burbank and completely run Star Wars as a Disney property and completely shelve the whole Lucasfilm idea? Do you think that,
Well,
is it still Lucasfilm without George Lucas there anymore?
They basically did that with Pixar. Pixar, I think, was a lot more independent when Lasseter was there, and Marvel Studios. I don't really know. I don't follow the production of those films and TV series. Yeah, obviously, like we do Star Wars. So I don't know what Marvel Studios is as a studio relative to what Lucasfilm is as a studio. I imagine it comes down to some have more autonomy than others. Do I think that Lucasfilm will have less autonomy in a post Kathleen Kennedy era? Yes, absolutely. I think the majority of the shots are going to be called from on high.
That's right. From what we understand, not only is The Mandalorian and Grogu a Bob Iger green light, but so is Star Wars Starfighter.
Yes.
The whole, the Sean Levy, Ryan Johnson, Ryan Gosling Too many Ryans in Star Wars these days. But yeah, Ryan Gosling, that's Iger's looking at that as a can't miss. And should that thing fail, then that's firmly a Bob Iger failure. Firmly. You can lay that, and if it's a big success, then it's a Bob Iger success. But the buck stops there when it comes to Star Wars Starfighter and The Mandalorian and Grogu. No longer are these solely Lucasfilm productions. These are much more Disney than you could imagine. So is this a trend for the future? We shall see.
We shall. And I think what's rankling a lot of people is just they're saying no to projects with guys like Soderbergh, and they were greenlighting projects with unknowns to take on major characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Certainly in the top 5 of most important Star Wars characters, and you essentially gave it to an amateur to run. Well, not just a movie, but an entire series.
Amateur, no, but someone. Do you think that Deborah Chow had the chops to be the one show running the continuation of the story of the legendary Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Obviously not. Obviously not.
I don't think we can say it's all Deborah. I think there were way too many voices at the table who shouldn't have had a voice when it came to that.
I mean, COVID
Kenobi
didn't
series.
help. COVID was a factor. For sure. And some of the production quality issues, for sure.
But the idea of the Inquisitor Reva wasn't a result of COVID.
No, you're right. No. I'm trying to be kind.
The little Leia character is not because of COVID. There were just some puzzling decisions made along the way, which really took the focus off of the main character, Ben Kenobi. And you see this happen with Star Wars publishing all of the time, where you get sidetracked by these nonsensical, mundane characters who 9 out of 10 times get killed off before the story is even over. But you have to spend all of this time wasting with them as they go about their activities and only have like mere contact with the characters you want to hear from. I'm specifically talking about this new Darth Vader novel that I'm in the thick of, this audio book. And it just, man, it goes into some boring territory with some boring side characters you don't give 2 craps about. And this sort of thing happens all the time with Star Wars novels. And it happened in the Kenobi series. Who wants to tune into the show called Obi-Wan Kenobi and spend half of it with a nonsensical character like Reva? It was just, it's ridiculous. Happens all the time in publishing. But publishing, you expect it to happen in, because they're just trying to fill pages of a book.
That's exactly right.
When you're talking about a premium streaming service that is supposed to be continuing the story of one of the most legendary cinematic characters of all time, a character created by the great Sir Alec Guinness, you don't want to F around. And Lucasfilm and Disney F'd around. They F'd around. And it's unfortunate. At least Ewan McGregor was really good in it.
He's great. Yeah.
I'm not afraid.
You will be.
Rebel Force Radio.
You will be.
Your source for the Force.
All right. Do we want to get to some of these voicemails that were left about the Ben Solo fallout?
I think so. I've really been enjoying reading listeners' reactions online, and the voicemail hotline was wide open. So let's hear what you guys had to say.
Hey guys, chat. This is Ryan from Colorado Springs. Reading this news, I haven't had a chance to sit down and look at this whole Adam Driver interview yet and get more of the information, but I always thought that one of the big failings of the sequel trilogy was not giving more background on kind of Ben Solo, that whole character, because so clearly it's patterned on Legends era, Jason Solo, son of Han and Leia, falls to the dark side. And I just think that having a movie with Hunt for Ben Solo, maybe you get some more background, you get some flashbacks from Ben of just like, what is it that led you down this path, aside from, the somewhat aggressive Rian Johnson, my uncle is going to kill me immediately as soon as he senses any dark side elements of me. Like, was there any proclivities? Were there any leanings? How much was Snoke in his head? How much was actually Ben Solo and his own innate personalities and failings in the context that he's brought up? Because, I mean, the guy's under a ton of pressure, right? He's growing up. He's the son of two legendary heroes. He's the nephew of another legendary hero. He finds out in the Princess Leia novel that he's the grandson of Darth Vader from, not directly from Leia. He finds out as part of the public situation when that gets revealed. So it's just sort of like, I mean, his whole family situation and dynamic is really different, and it would have been, I think, helpful for this movie to have some flashbacks and some more context for who he was, how he got to where he ended up being. And so that's where I kind of wish, you know, maybe we don't see the movie, maybe they turn it into a novelization, but I think that would have been a really good way to really boost interest in the sequel characters and make it feel like more than just kind of a New Hope knockoff on the first movie and then Rian Johnson going his way and then JJ jumping in and changing directions at the end. It would have been helpful to have a more cohesive through line. So that's my thoughts. Obviously, let us know what you guys think, but hope you're having a great day. RFR number 1.
All right. Well, yeah, imagine that. Some character development would have, in backstory, would have helped out. You have to lay that not at the feet of J.J. Abrams. That's at the feet of Rian Johnson. I think J.J. did what he was supposed to do. I think he wrote a very interesting story. He laid really interesting groundwork. I mean, R2 under a tarp. Luke Skywalker has been missing. There's this punk, emo, young Sith out there. There's, Rey. That wouldn't have been the place in The Force Awakens to learn all of that stuff. Just like The Empire Strikes Back filled in a lot of the gaps after meeting these established characters in A New Hope, that was the role for the second film in the trilogy. And that is what completely derailed the whole thing. So that's a Rian Johnson failure right there.
I mean, if you really wanted to pick up on the threads that J.J. Abrams left behind and do so in an Empire Strikes Back kind of way, then you would have had Rey really finding her purpose. Yeah. Rey to me seems as confused as ever when The Last Jedi is over. She does it,
just like the audience.
And the audience too,
yeah, right.
because The Rise of Skywalker then unraveled certain things that may have contributed to Rey's character development if they would have been adhered to in Episode 9. But Episode 9 suddenly changed everything. I was like, well, you don't know who your parents are. Well, I mean, my parents are nobody. I'm nobody. No. Guess what happened? We got new writers, and you're now a Palpatine. Congratulations. Yeah. So we're making this 11th hour change to the sequel trilogy in the third film. And now Palpatine is behind everything.
You know, when that was floated out there, your parents were nobody. I remember thinking about that and thinking that was kind of interesting because here all this time, Rey, who has these incredible skills and these incredible abilities and this amazing future, thinks that it's all based on her bloodline and who her parents were. And so for Kylo to come out and cut her at the quick, it was a great setup to be able to make the case that it doesn't matter necessarily. Greatness is not defined by who your parents are or your grandparents. You define your own greatness. And I thought that's what they were going for with the Rey character, was that she was going to be juxtaposed to Luke, who was the offspring of greatness in Anakin Skywalker, that she was just going to be sort of the other side of it. And again, I think it was a cool concept, and they completely threw it away. Was it anticlimactic? Yes, it was anticlimactic, but if it was going to serve a greater story point and make the character of Rey stronger because she is pulling herself up from her bootstraps and accepting her role and her purpose in the galaxy without having to lean on legacy, I'm there for it. But it wasn't that.
I'm confused, though. on the notion that Rey was motivated by some sort of royal legacy she had to live up to? Because I don't
think it was a royal legacy. I think it hinged on her whole identity and her accepting herself as who she is. Hinged on her parents coming back. She was not going to leave that planet.
Right.
She was not going to go after her Death Star until her parents came back.
Right.
And I think she thought her parents were something special.
But see, that's the part I don't see any evidence of in the story whatsoever.
Then why would it be, if she didn't think her parents were special, why would it be so crushing to hear Kylo Ren say they were nobodies, they were junkers?
Again, ask Rian Johnson. Because I think Rian Johnson was feeding off of the fan speculation, prioritizing Rey's background. Who is Rey? Is she a Skywalker? Is she a Solo? Is she a Kenobi? That was even being floated out there.
Oh, yeah.
It was floated out everywhere except for in the actual screenplay itself. Never once does she attribute any of her emerging force powers to some sort of family lineage. Never. I was always under the impression she merely wanted to be reunited with her parents because they were her parents. She wanted to be back with her family.
Yeah, of course. That's obviously the biggest part of it. But if you have a character on screen that looks leveled and gutted by a revelation, then there has to be a reason why she's gutted.
But there's no substantial narrative to back that up whatsoever, other than her reaction.
Her reaction,
but who did she think her parents were? That never gets discussed.
No,
that never gets discussed. None of this gets discussed. It's all just left very vague, and I think that there is a fine line going on here between the narrative of the story and the way the fans were reacting to the sequel trilogy. And that is an element that was never in play in George Lucas's Star Wars storytelling approach. He never let the fans dictate how the story was playing out. But I think Rian Johnson was firmly listening to the fan base. And he's the one who assumed this about the character of Rey, that Rey was wanting to reunite with her parents because she wanted to learn something. There was something special about her and her lineage. But that's never part of the narrative for the Star Wars films. And judging her reaction to hearing the news that her parents were nobody, that again is assuming you're projecting something onto the character.
We do that all the time when we see movies. We project and we make assumptions and we read into things.
True.
I'm just saying I could have justified the lackluster reveal if it had meant something, but that didn't pay off, is what I'm saying.
They needed some reinforcement. They needed some reinforcements there. Like when Han says, "You want to go back to Jakku?" And she's like, "Yeah, I got to get back there." She wants to get back there because she's waiting for her family. But there should have been something there. Like, yeah, my family's going to return, and I need to learn more about these things that I'm discovering about myself. There has to be something about my family that, there needed to be something in the narrative. There's nothing in the narrative. There's nothing in the narrative that indicates that Rey wants to be reunited with her mom and dad simply just to be in a family again. And because she grew up, orphaned, alone, fighting as a scavenger for, her food every day. She knew there was a better existence out there. And she thought her mom and dad eventually returning to Jakku would present that to her. Not necessarily her family returning to Jakku and being some sort of big-time players on the galactic scene or Jedi or whatever they're going to be. I mean, none of that is really in the story at all, and it's all being superimposed on the characters. And it really hurt the narrative of the sequel trilogy.
You're saying that some of these choices, your claim is that some of these choices were made as a reaction to fan speculation.
Yeah. It's a dim-witted director spending way too much time staring at social media. And that dim-witted director is Rian Johnson. He was in way over his head when it came to Star Wars. Way over his head. And he just didn't have the backbone to be able to, navigate those waters.
I look at that, and I think that's the influence of Story Group. I think they're the ones that are online and feeding Ryan a bunch of...
okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe I shouldn't say dim-witted. I mean, he is a successful film director, and he's found his niche with the poker face and the Knives Out, whatever nonsense he's, his little murder mystery shows. That's perfect for him. He's found his element. Star Wars, he was a fish out of water, and the proof is in the results.
Hi, Jason, Jimmy. It's Alex Osborne from England. I am a long-time RFR listener, Patreon supporter, and this is my first time leaving a voicemail. I'm a big fan of Adam Driver and Kylo Ren, but I do think it was the correct decision to not move ahead with the Hunt for Ben Solo project, mostly because there was no real explanation for Ben Solo returning. I appreciate that the Palpatine resurrection could have been executed better. I think we'd all agree that. But he was always obsessed with cheating death and immortality. It's consistent with his character. He was, of course, the apprentice of Darth Plagueis, and we have that through line there from Revenge of the Sith when he has that conversation with Anakin at the opera. And, of course, since then, Disney have been trying to kind of fill those gaps with things like Project Necromancer that we've seen in The Bad Batch and The Mandalorian Season 3. I also feel like Resurrection is really unnatural, and therefore it's more of a dark side-related power. It's not something that the Jedi would really seek and go after. And at the end of the day, Ben Solo sacrificed his own life at the end of The Rise of Skywalker to resurrect Rey, and I feel like bringing him back would completely undermine the ending of the film and the saga. Regardless of what you feel of the sequel trilogy, I think it would be a really, really bad decision to completely undermine the ending like that. I enjoy the sequel trilogy myself. I do appreciate it could have been executed better and been a better plan for the sequel trilogy, but I always try and enjoy what we've got as opposed to dwelling on what we haven't got, and I just feel like bringing back Ben Solo post-Episode 9 would just be a bad idea in general. But I would love to see another Ben Solo or Kylo Ren project, whether that be with Adam Driver or an animated series. Thank you guys, and I'll listen to you again as always.
Yeah, so Alex, despite being a fan of the character of the films, is saying, look, there's just no way you can really, he's taken the Bergman Iger route here and saying there's just no way you can justify this character coming back. And Jim, that's been on my mind since the last show last week, me thinking about how could you do this? Is this a world between worlds type thing? Just because we've never seen a Jedi do this before doesn't mean that it couldn't happen for the first time. But how do you do it in a way that doesn't seem cheap, that doesn't seem overly contrived, and then thereby taking away from the character?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to read the script. I'd love to know how they pulled this off. But it certainly didn't bother Adam Driver, Steven Soderbergh, Kathleen Kennedy, Carrie Beck, Dave Filoni. They seem to have bought into the whole thing.
Well, on Exegol, Kylo Ren had many clone bodies there waiting for his spirit to then transfer into the clone bodies after death, much like Palpatine himself. Now, sure, you can point to examples like that, or you can point at things like the Clone Wars and the return of Darth Maul and everything. But Kylo Ren / Ben Solo is such an integral character when it comes to the sequel trilogy that him returning is massive. It's a massive twist of fate for him and his character, and could have some effects on other characters too, specifically Rey.
Oh, yeah.
And where she ends up at the end of the film as well. Would you have liked to have seen Rey and Kylo end up together and having a romantic affair and shepherding the next generation of Jedi and everything like that? Yeah, that's all fine and good, but what do you say about the atrocities Kylo Ren committed as a member of the First Order? I mean, for crying out loud, he killed his own father. Not only is he guilty of genocide, he's guilty of patricide. He's done the most despicable things. I mean, even rivaling Darth Vader in that aspect, and essentially that's what Kylo Ren wanted to do. He was modeling himself after Darth Vader. There was nowhere for Anakin Skywalker to go once Luke redeemed him in Return of the Jedi. And keeping in those, in a similar, keeping those boundaries intact, then you could say the same thing for Ben Solo.
Yeah, a white armored Darth Vader was, returning with Luke to the Ewok village. I think that was in a comic book at one point in Infinities, and it was fodder for a lot of different memes and parodies, from Robot Chicken to I think Family Guy. But you're right. I mean, there are serious crimes that were committed, atrocities, as you say. So whatever they Ben Solo would need to do, like, he would have to save the galaxy, essentially, in order for those past sins to be looked past. Or maybe it would have been a story of him hiding out and Rey trying to figure a way to clear his name or make him legitimate again. I don't know. I mean, one thing I do know is that the politics of Star Wars are not much different than the politics in our own real world. You watch Mandalorian, you watch anything that takes place after the original trilogy, where they're talking about the New Republic, and it's just these people don't look like some enlightened souls that would look past all this stuff. I think they're by the book bureaucrats, and they would want to throw the book at him and put him in some high security cell somewhere.
Yeah. Exactly. Pay for your crimes, Kylo Ren. But the idea of a character coming back fully from the dead is something that George Lucas was toying around with when they were putting together the rough draft for Return of the Jedi. When Luke is taken captive by the Emperor, in the rough draft, it's on a planet called Hadabaddon. And the Emperor's throne room is way underground in like this giant cavern, and it's filled with lava and things like that. And so they take Luke, he's unconscious, and they drop him off there in this cavern, surrounded by lava, like he's on a rock, a small island. I have the annotated screenplay here with me right now. It's out because me and Matt Rashid were just going through it. But here's a little taste of what George Lucas was considering for the end of Return of the Jedi, according to the revised rough draft. Luke lies unconscious on a small island in the middle of a lake of lava. A hot wind blows across his face and wakes him. He suddenly becomes aware of a presence behind him. He looks back and sees Ben in the flesh. Ben explains that he's come back to help Luke destroy the Emperor and his father. Yoda appears. While Ben will be at his side, Yoda will also be able to help from the netherworld. Then George says, even though breathing is such a... Even though at some point Yoda and Ben interfered, I eventually decided they couldn't connect physically with what Luke was doing. I felt like one of the major issues in the third film is that Luke is finally on his own and has to fight Vader and the Emperor by himself. If you get the sense Yoda or Ben is there to help him or somehow influence him, it diminishes the power of the scene. So that's a master storyteller right there.
Yes.
Telling you what's up.
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, he was toying around with that idea that these guys could actually fully reappear in the flesh. No more Force Spirit Ben. And I love the idea, but I also see what George is thinking. He always looked at storytelling as like lining up dominoes and then knocking them down, and each domino had to hit the next domino in the exact way then to make the next domino fall. And that was his process as a storyteller. And he wasn't thinking about how cool it would be to have Ben and Yoda around for future Star Wars films, because he was concluding the series with Return of the Jedi. And so none of that was coming into play. Nowadays, you have a Lucasfilm, and they're looking at Adam Driver a few years after The Rise of Skywalker, and they say Adam Driver's getting nominated now for Academy Awards and stuff. They're like, why did we kill Ben Solo? That was so stupid. And they tried to course correct that mistake by actually attempting to bring Ben Solo back, bring Adam Driver back, make it happen, and Disney pulled the rug out from underneath them. As far as
I mean, at the end of the day, the only way this character could redeem himself for, yes, all those atrocities, but let's not forget the biggest one for Star Wars fans is he killed Han Solo. The only way he could redeem himself is a sacrifice, and that's exactly what he does, and I think that's exactly why JJ wrote it that way. It was the act of sacrifice. Because you're right. There, just as you said with Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, there was no coming back from that. There was no world for him there. So, some of these theories that I've seen online for how he could come back are just, he didn't truly die. He's able to force transfer to a new synthetic body. The Force dyad created abnormal force properties within him. Force tech. People saying force tech. And look, everybody's well-intentioned, but I don't know. Am I siding with Bob Iger here? That there's just no way? Without reading the script, we don't know for sure, but it's hard for me to imagine a way that would be plausible to where I would care.
I hear you, man. I hear you. If I could just conclude my thoughts on this entire thing, I'm actually gonna quote the great Kylo Ren. This is a line he used in The Last Jedi, and I think maybe Adam Driver might want to take this particular line of dialogue to heart. Adam Driver, Kathy Kennedy, Carrie Beck, Dave Filoni, everybody who is behind this drive to bring back Adam Driver and Ben Solo to Star Wars. The quote is this: "Let the past die. Kill it if you have to. It's the only way to become what you were meant to be." Adam, I think you were meant to become an Academy Award nominated. Maybe someday you'll even take home the gold. You're an actor of that kind of quality. Let the past die, Kylo. As a matter of fact, Adam Driver has signed on to a new Netflix series. It's called Rabbit.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah,
I think it's like about a fugitive on the run from the law or something. I know very little of it, but Adam Driver obviously letting the past die. He's moving on to his next project, and potentially Emmy Awards will rain down upon him for this. And I think as Star Wars fans, we also should maybe move forward and just think about this as the Star Wars that never was and was never meant to be, apparently. Yeah. So I don't think anything is going to resurrect this particular project. You can fly all the banners you want over the Walt Disney headquarters. I think it's done. I think Soderbergh's moved on. Adam Driver's moved on. Lucasfilm has moved on. Disney's moved on. I think we as a fan base should move on. Yes. So maybe that's the final say I have on it.
Yeah. And I say, I don't get my Han Solo back. You don't get your Ben Solo back. Fair is fair. All right.
But we did get Han back in Rise of Skywalker. And not to pick nits or anything, but...
I'm saying they killed the character. The character's dead.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
This Halloween season, the legend returns. Rebel Force Radio with Jason and Jimmy Mack. Can you handle it?
Sigourney Weaver talking Mandalorian and Grogu on Josh Horowitz's on stage at New York Comic Con for a very live special podcast of his Happy, Sad, Confused program. Jim, any revelations here?
Well, I think there's little things, little tidbits of information we can pick out of some of her responses here, just to kind of indicate to us what kind of meaty character she's going to be playing in The Mandalorian and Grogu, or is this just going to be a cameo, a glorified cameo?
Of course, you have to be part of the Star Wars universe. It's like written in the stars. It has to happen. I'm surprised it took this long. Is that just like a phone call from Jon Favreau? Like, how did that come around?
Yeah, like I got this call from Jon. I mean, I don't want to be greedy and just eat franchises. I'm a monster. But I got a call from Jon Favreau, who I'm a great admirer of, and he, we talked, and he said, just start watching the show. And I was, of course, amazed by it and fell in love with it. And Pedro and Grogu, I mean, also I love how the Star Wars universe it's not trying to pay off each movie with the whole backlog of movies. It's now, individual stories set in the same universe. Ours is set in the Outer Rim. So I was thrilled. I was only on the set for a few days, but I was surrounded by all kinds of different creatures. I got a drink from someone with very different kind of head than I have.
Don't talk about Pedro Pascal that way. What? So you get to work with both Pedro and Grogu. Quality time with Mandalorian and Grogu?
I'm the luckiest girl in the world.
Also lucky, I mean, to see you in that iconic costume, like the X-Wing pilot costume. Again, who would have thunk it? Amazing.
Not I, yeah. It was a whole new world. So I feel very fortunate that I got to do that.
She just sounds like one of the nicest, cool, chill people you could possibly talk to. It's like, she makes the joke about she's not just here to eat franchises, but I mean, she's part of two of the biggest in my lifetime, Ghostbusters and Alien. And Avatar, which is, I hear that everyone loves these movies. I've never seen one of them. She's part of that franchise.
I saw the first one.
Yeah. Right. Talking about being only on set for a few days, I don't anticipate, Jim, she's going to have a massive role. I think she's going to have a role that is going to make an impact when we're watching the film. Right. One, because it's Sigourney Weaver. Is it going to be beyond cameo status? Yeah, I think she's going to set wheels in motion, so she might bookend it. She might be like, think of a character like M in James Bond. Not a ton of screen time, but certainly carries a lot of weight in the story. So maybe she sets Mando off on his journey at the beginning, and she's there at the end to say, well done, or what have you. So that's more or less the role I kind of see Sigourney in here.
Yeah, I predict she'll be in the movie more than Simon Pegg was in The Force Awakens, but less than Laura Dern was in The Last Jedi.
Ah, okay.
So somewhere right in the middle there. Yeah. So
don't forget about Max von Sydow, which was also a big hot name that people were speculating because he was such a actor of renown.
Still no clue as to who that character is, how he connects to the big story. Why did he, of all people, have the map to Luke Skywalker? None of this is explained. How did Kylo Ren know him? Oh, you're so old now, he says to him. Where's the connection? What's going on? Don't tell me to go read a book. Because I find those Lucasfilm books unreadable these days. And it's been that way for the last 10 years. Those books are unreadable. They really need to blow out everyone at Lucasfilm Publishing, top to bottom. That place needs an enema, man. They need to be cleaned out. Because
you're trying. You're not just saying this. You're trying. You're reading these things or trying to.
I read them.
Yeah.
Or listen to them if they're audiobooks or what have you.
Kyle Newman, he's on the road a lot, in the car a lot, and he consumes a lot of these audiobooks, and yeah, he's pretty much saying the same thing. They're a slog.
God, poor Kyle. He's stuck in the LA freeway traffic breathing in all that carbon monoxide, listening to subpar Star Wars stories that go nowhere. I feel, yeah. Well, hey, yeah, to each their own.
Right.
We're all masochists for Star Wars in a certain way, shape, or form. We have more Mandalorian and Grogu news.
We do indeed.
Jeremy Allen White from The Bear. He's going to be voicing Rotta the Hutt in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. And he's out and about now on the interview talk show circuit because he's promoting the Bruce Springsteen movie, Deliver Me from Nowhere. He plays Bruce.
He's playing Bruce in this thing? I couldn't tell from the preview if it was really supposed to be Bruce or it was like a Bruce tribute type thing. But he's actually playing Bruce.
He is Bruce, yeah, and it's about a specific period in Bruce's career. After he released The River and before he released Nebraska, which is like one of Bruce's most boring albums. Don't come after me, Springsteen freaks, okay? Please
Show
don't.
At rebelforceradio.com. Show at rebelforceradio.com. Subject line, Springsteen.
But there's some gems in that album, but for the most part it's pretty boring. But it's a weird part of Bruce's career to choose to make a movie out of, but I guess Jeremy Allen White is really good in it. He actually performs, he the whole thing, it delivers what you want in a movie about a legendary musician, I mean, they've been making movies about musicians going all the way back to the old Elvis movies with Kurt Russell. And there've been a few Beatles movies. Of course, Richard Marquand, the director of Return of the Jedi, directed a movie about the Beatles.
Was that Backbeat?
No, not Backbeat. This was a made-for-TV movie. It was called Birth of the Beatles, and it's about their rise to fame, playing in Germany and places like that. When they would, before they got the gray suits and the ties, they were up on stage wearing black leather and motorcycle boots and just rocking. And so, yeah, Richard Marquand made this. It was a made-for-TV movie, The Birth of the Beatles. I think it was on ABC. And the first time I saw it was shortly after John Lennon was assassinated. Ooh. And the Beatles were everywhere at that point. And they reran this movie or showed it for the first time. I can't remember, but that's when I saw it, was when it originally aired.
I think there's
you can see it on YouTube.
Massive Beatles biopic that's in the works. I believe.
Yeah, there is something. I think there's a couple of them actually that are currently in the works. So we'll see. We shall see. But for now, Jeremy Allen White is in theaters now in Deliver Me from Nowhere, playing the boss. And he appeared on Good Morning America and talked a little bit about voicing Rotta the Hutt in the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu film.
It was exciting. It's funny. I met Jon Favreau, who directed the film and the series, prior. And I've been such a huge fan of John's for a very long time. And so we started talking about movies, and I was asking him about Swingers, and he said, would you like to come in and maybe talk to me about doing just a voiceover deal for Star Wars? I said, I love Star Wars. I'd be so happy to. And I came in, and then I discovered, kind of in the moment almost, the weight of the kind of character I was voicing. But it's been a fun process. I came in to do the voice. They hadn't filmed the movie yet. Then they made the movie. I came and did more. I'll probably have to do a little bit more. I spoke to Pedro the other day, and I think he was doing some more work in the booth and seeing some more of the film. And I'm very excited. I'm very excited to take my kids to see that one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it's going to be really fun.
Really fun.
Really fun, according to Jeremy Allen White. Yeah, so is John just kind of giving out these gigs, these voiceover gigs to just his friends?
Yeah, that's how he does it.
Right,
or like sure. He met Bill Burr at a party, and that's how Burr got the job on The Mandalorian. Just from meeting up at a party one night. Huh. So, yeah. If you're in the right place at the right time and Jon Favreau is there, you may end up in The Mandalorian and Grogu or something. So, but Jeremy Allen White, he continues on the interview circuit and ended up on the Graham Norton show for the BBC. And he also discussed, in a little bit more detail, I believe, his character, Rotta the Hutt.
Jeremy, you know about big movie franchises because you're joining the Star Wars world, aren't you?
Oh my gosh. Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, is this correct? You are playing Rotta the Hutt.
That's correct. Rotta, yes.
Yeah. And is Rotta any relation to Jabba the Hutt?
That's correct, yes.
Oh.
That's Dad. Yeah.
I'm hoping the apple fell quite far from the tree.
You know, it's interesting. I can't say too much about it, but no, I look very much like that in the film. I just do voice work in the film. He's just a bit broader, but still like a Hutt. Yes, it's kind of like him and the Mandalorian running around for a lot of the movie together.
So Rotta can run.
Rotta can move, yeah, quickly. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now that's something. That is something because we haven't seen Hutts move at any real speed to speak of in any kind of live action Star Wars. Now we did see in Clone Wars, we did see Jabba and Zero get around pretty good, but this is going to be interesting. And he says that they run around together for quite a bit of the film. So this is not just a cameo. Again, going back to cameos, this is a fairly meaty role, sounds like.
It makes me really curious about this team of adventurers that are going to be gathered around the Mandalorian and Grogu, because we also know Zeb is going to be in the film as well. So we could have a situation where Zeb and Rotta are kicking ass side by side next to the Mandalorian and Grogu. Maybe an IG-11 is in there with them. And, who knows who else can be joining the fight.
It's going to be a fun group.
All the Mandalorian actors, though, who are associated with the streaming series have been really mum about their involvement in the show. Only a few actors have really spoken on the record. I know Katie O'Brien, who played that shifty Imperial officer that messed around with Dr. Pershing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
She was Dr. Pershing's downfall. Well, she had made a comment that she is not going to be in the Mandalorian film. And I believe a couple other actors have been.
She was she made a big impression on the screen. She was a very compelling, interesting character. Your eyes were very drawn to her. She just had a lot going on in the face.
It seemed like there were multi-dimensions to her character as well.
Yeah, very much so.
It's multifaceted.
Yeah.
And I believe that there were, there's a lot. I think Tim Morrison has insinuated that he has no future with the Mandalorian, or he's still waiting for his phone to call and stuff. But, Tim can be a little, his behavior is rather sus from time to time. So you don't know if he's telling the truth or not. We haven't heard anything from anybody like a Ming-Na Wen or a Timothy Oliphant. I'm just thinking about.
Wait a minute. Now I feel like. Wait a minute. Well, all right. I'm not going to say it on the air.
Oh, Timothy did say something.
Timothy did have.
He did say something.
He was being interviewed and he said something about, "Hey, I'm here."
I am guilty of sending Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni a text that said, "Just a reminder that neither me or Cobb Vanth are dead."
No confirmation of anything. He was just saying, "I'm available. Hey, give me a call."
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if he ends up in that or, I don't think Rosario Dawson's going to be showing up in The Mandalorian and Grogu either with the Ahsoka Season 2.
I don't think so either. Agreed.
Currently in post-production, so I don't think we'll see any kind of tie-ins like that. Obviously, I believe her character would be in another galaxy at this point, if the timelines are all syncing up.
That would be real confusing if they're like, well, this takes place right before she went into that galaxy. Oh, good God.
No, we can't have that.
No.
But speaking of Ahsoka Season 2, we have a few production updates on that. Cinematic News on X was reporting that Rosario Dawson was at Comic-Con Scotland, and she announced that she had filmed several scenes with Hayden Christensen for Ahsoka season 2. And she also mentioned that the budget apparently is a bit smaller than it was for the first season.
Interesting. She said that.
Yeah. Which is an odd thing to say.
It really is.
But the story itself will be considerably deeper and more comprehensive than what we were served up in Ahsoka season 1. I don't think you have to work too hard to make a story more comprehensive than what we were presented with in Ahsoka season 1, which I thought was laughable as far as the narrative goes.
It was a bit thin.
Yeah. I mean, you can, say, oh, well, it was season 5 of Rebels, but I don't think that's a very effective way to approach live action, to approach it as if it's another season of an animated
It was a whole
show.
season of setup. That's all it was setup.
And a lot of motivation that was mysterious, to say the least. Especially coming from Ahsoka. And don't get me started on these lightsabers through the gut. I mean, we really can't be having that happen anymore in Star Wars. Other information that we've been able to gather comes from out of New York Comic-Con. More information about Ahsoka Season 2. Searcher_gold on X reported they stood in line for Bryce Dallas Howard's autograph at New York Comic-Con. And as she was signing, apparently Searcher Gold started peppering her with questions about Ahsoka Season 2. We know that Bryce is directing a couple of episodes of Ahsoka Season 2. So they asked Bryce if Season 2 was going to be the final season for Ahsoka, and she couldn't say because she said she didn't know. We've heard things indicating to us that, that's going to be it for the Ahsoka thing. And also, I believe the Filoni film that was supposed to be this culmination event, the battle against Grand Admiral Thrawn, I believe the film has morphed into Ahsoka Season 2. I don't think there's any Dave Filoni feature film currently on the schedule at Lucasfilm. I think, again, that was Kathleen Kennedy trying to cultivate fan support for something like that, but it was nothing that Disney ever gave the green light to. And now Dave is an executive with Lucasfilm too, so that might limit the amount of time he would have to be on a film set when it's all said and done. Much like his mentor George Lucas, he doesn't have the time to direct anymore. He has to run a company.
Oh, man. Talk about the moment when Luke looks down and sees his mechanical hand. That's going to be Dave. He's going to end up in the big C-suite, in the big chair, in the big office in the corner, and look down and see that mechanical hand that he's turned it.
Yeah. Every time he puts that glove over that bionic hand, that's another day he's not on a film set. So he's in the office. So more from Bryce Dallas Howard. She says that editing had only just begun and the episode runtimes will be 45 minutes to an hour in length.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's before the editing happens. Maybe, I expect it to be modeled after the first season, where we'll end up with those 35, 40-minute long episodes. But maybe they're going for a little bit more longevity with these episodes. Here's something I find interesting. Season 2 addresses and fixes complaints from Season 1 regarding the series' color grading and cinematography. I don't recall.
This is from Bryce Dallas Howard?
I don't know how they formed the question, how they framed the question.
Gotcha.
But what she said is Lucasfilm is aware of the issue, and they hired one of the directors of photography from Rogue One to help improve and strengthen the overall cinematography and color grading. All right. Wow. I never really even knew that was such a big issue. I thought Ahsoka Season 1, for all its faults, it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I felt.
I thought so too.
Yeah. So I don't know what that's all about. But and then post-production for Season 2 will take about a year. And so this person, Searcher Gold, is then assuming the release window will be November 2026 because they're looking out a year from now. But I think that's flawed. I think we'll be seeing Ahsoka earlier in the fall, like October or even September. Ahsoka Season 1 dropped in late August 2023. And if you look at the way things are scheduled out for Lucasfilm, you'll have that Darth Maul animated series on the air at the same time the Mandalorian and Grogu film gets released. If the Darth Maul series comes out in April. I got some information on the Darth Maul series as well. Shadow Lord. From what we understand, the series is going to be 3 seasons long. We've received no indication to episode length nor number of episodes per season, but I believe it will follow the same sort of scheduling the Bad Batch did, which was also 3 seasons, 12 episodes per season. I believe that's how the Darth Maul Shadow Lord series will unfold. The series, here's some interesting information about the actual story. It will include all of the crime families we know of from Star Wars. So it's going to be some sort of big Godfather type situation with the 5 families coming together and eventually going to war. They're going to the mattresses, Swan.
I love it. These things have to happen, every few years.
But here's a big one. Here's a big bomb.
Bad blood.
Here's a big bombshell. The series will also include Darth Vader. So Darth Vader will be an element. He will be part of the story of Darth Maul Shadow Lord. And I don't know about you, but something that I felt like Star Wars Rebels really dropped the ball on was having a confrontation between Darth Vader and Darth Maul. They had it right there. It was set up on a tee for them, but instead they did this nonsensical old master business with Ezra, and then they had the silly showdown between Maul and Kenobi on the desert, which never resonated with me whatsoever. But that's just me. A lot of people like that. If you like it, fine. Right. I'm just saying it never resonated with me. I think this is a great opportunity to right a wrong, because I think all of us fans would love to see a showdown between Vader and Maul. Darth versus Darth. 2 Darths enter, 1 Darth leaves.
And you'll be able to get that action figure 2-pack for $79.99.
Yeah,
at all retailers, the Darth Maul versus Darth Vader 2-pack from Hasbro.
And it won't release until 5 years after the series finale has aired, making demand for it just off the charts. Synchronicity. But the plan is for the series to debut in April. That's why I said you're going to have the Darth Maul series and the Mandalorian and Grogu happening at the same time, which is kind of weird. But that's just how they're balancing it. Other Star Wars rumors, we have Rogue Squadron. We have Rogue Squadron news. Apparently, the film and Patty Jenkins as director was announced in December 2020. It was initially being targeted for a 2023 feature film release, but development stalled, and Rogue Squadron was placed on the back burner. There was some falling out between Patty Jenkins and Lucasfilm as well, but that may have been resolved because Patty Jenkins announced earlier this year she's still attached to Rogue Squadron and she still owed Lucasfilm a script. From what we understand now, Rogue Squadron is rumored to be transitioning from a film project into a streaming series. So we know of no streaming series plans for Lucasfilm following Ahsoka Season 2.
Hey, where's
Rogue
that
Squadron,
Lando project?
That's supposed to be a film.
Right.
And apparently that is actually still going through a healthy bit of pre-production development as we speak.
So that has a heartbeat.
That definitely has a heartbeat. It's Donald Glover and his brother working on it, and that still somehow has a heartbeat.
Okay,
and so does Rogue Squadron, but it looks like it's going to be a streaming series now. Of course, this is something that Lucasfilm has spent a lot of time developing, a lot of time working on this kind of project.
I think a Rogue Squadron streaming series makes a heck of a lot of sense.
It sure does.
That excites me. Yeah. That excites me. That has legs. That could go on for multiple seasons.
Oh, yeah. You could go through generations of pilots.
Yeah, right.
So it's not clear if Patty is still attached to this project. But as I said, she announced not too long ago that she still owes Lucasfilm a script for Rogue Squadron. So maybe they've developed that script. They've turned that into a streaming series. Only time will tell. I don't think we'll be getting any news about the future of Star Wars, like legitimate announcements, anything like that. I don't believe we'll be hearing anything until the first quarter of 2026 at the earliest. And then marketing will really start ramping up for all these great projects we have to look forward to in 2026. Darth Maul, Shadow Lord, Mandalorian and Grogu, Ahsoka Season 2, and then there's the anime series that will also debut as well.
Yeah.
So lots of things going on. 2026 will be a busy one. 2025 started out pretty busy too, but then really, since Andor, things have been so quiet.
It really has. And of course, 2026 is just a prelude to the big 50th, and I hope that year does not let us down. I mean, we're looking at a re-release of A New Hope. Rumors are that it's going to be the original theatrical release. Could likely
in IMAX.
That's right. Yeah. So that was officially announced that Star Wars A New Hope is going to be an IMAX release. So it is going to require some work. And based on the rumors that we've been hearing, this is indeed going to be the original theatrical version as it was released in theaters back in 1977, this time in IMAX. Wow.
Yeah.
That's going to be something.
A lot to look forward to.
For sure.
We'll be there. Rebel Force Radio will be there. You better be there too.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, that's going to wrap things up here for us this week on Rebel Force Radio. That was a lot laid on you there in that last 15, 20 minutes. You might have to go back and listen to that again in order to soak it all up. A lot of rumors and a lot to look forward to, that's for sure. But don't worry, Rebel Force Radio is here each and every week to break it all down for you. And, so you do not want to miss an episode of RFR. So make sure that your podcatcher of choice is subscribed. Make sure that you're following us on our socials. We're on Instagram. We're on X. We're on Facebook. Go to the website, rebelforceradio.com. Subscribe and support us over on Patreon, patreon.com/rebelforceradio. Check it out. Be part of the community and get those exclusive podcasts that you can't get anywhere else. And join the community of fantastic Star Wars fans that sit around and talk the wars in the way that you have come to appreciate and the way that you're used to here on Rebel Force Radio. Please keep listening. Please keep letting the Star Wars fans in your life know about Rebel Force Radio and all the good times that we're having here. So, like I said, spread the word. If your podcatcher of choice allows you to leave a review, we love to have those reviews. Just one very simple, small rule, please.
Make them good.
Until next week, for more Rebel Force Radio, for RFR. That's what I'm trying to say. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Man.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
For Rebel Force Radio. For Rebel Force Radio.
RFR number 1.